If there's one thing that I can't stand, that would be TikTok love coaches and dating coaches and all these people out here who likely aren't in a successful relationship, probably aren't in any sort of psychology coursing, probably never taken a psychology course, like a real one, probably haven't ever really delved into relationship science and other things. But they often go out here and they talk about these things like they're experts. Now, with that premise, you may be wondering, well, why are you about to talk about it? Well, I'm 37 years old and I've been through a lot of stuff in life. So I have a bit of a different perspective on certain things. Plus, I actually studied endocrinology for a fair amount of time. I'm a former pro athlete. I've done a lot of things in my life while being a visually impaired individual. So my perspectives come from a lot of failure, a lot of better understandings, a lot of psychology, a lot of different avenues. Actually, I have an engineering degree. Relationships can often feel like engineering input output, listening for white noise, and getting to the truth of certain matters and things. But a lot of these love coaches and stuff, they do cause damage in people's relationships. In fact, they cause damage in functionality of social sciences as a whole, because a lot of it's just pseudo intellectualism and pseudoscience. And that causes big issues on a global scale because then people forget how to communicate. They don't really know who they are. They don't really know what they want most of the time. They've never really done that inner work. And one of the biggest red flags that you can see right here is pull away phase. There is no such thing. All of this game terminology, throw it out the door because that's not how relationships really are, not to that degree. So this caught my eye because there's a whole lot of stuff in here that's just marginally true with a lot of manipulation thrown right in. So without further ado, let's absolutely disintegrate this terrible, horrible love coach advice.
You were dating this man, he seemed like he was really into you, was calling consistently, even buying you flowers and gifts and taking you out on dates.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt that most men are buying you flowers and gifts. Taking you out on dates, more than likely, yeah, especially if you're dating. But buying flowers and gifts, that's more of a getting toward the commitment phase of things. But I digress.
And then all of a sudden he goes cold for you. He is not making an effort anymore. He is not trying to call you, not trying to see you. He always has an excuse that he's too busy. It's work, it's kids, it's this, it's that.
Well, okay. Maybe it is work because work is going to come before you. Maybe it is kids. Does he have a kid? How many kids does he have? Huh. It's amazing, the world does not revolve around one person in a relationship. It's a choice to involve that person. But there are other things that do come before that person that are priority number one. And work and job is absolutely priority number one. If you're not making money, well, you're not living. And if you're not living, then that makes you homeless. And then typically, if you're homeless, you're definitely not dating. So this is all going downhill at the speed of an asteroid.
What do you do and what is actually happening? Now, hopefully you've seen this video before you have done the dreaded start to chase him.
Oh,
Because
Lord.
for a lot of women, when they get attached to somebody that they really start to like and they really start to care about, they're afraid of losing them. It triggers their insecurities. It triggers their fear of not being enough and of being abandoned.
Okay. Here's the manipulation. Oh, it triggers. Not being enough. Being abandoned. Okay. No, 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 no. If someone is not responding to you, just be upfront with them. Ask them, hey, is there something going on? Is there a reason why you're being distant or not talking to me? Wow, holy shit, was that so hard? No, It's that simple. But you also have to be understanding of the response that you're going to get that, hey, yeah, I am having doubts. Okay, then maybe you should discuss those doubts like adults. Or maybe there is something going on. Maybe there's something with the guy. You never know. Hey, what's up, Evelyn? How are you doing? But there's really no abandonment going on here. You're in the dating phase. It's kind of hard to be abandoned by someone. This is using trauma terminology to apply to dating in a way that just does not work. But we'll continue on. I'm not doing too bad. I appreciate you asking. Just breaking down this ridiculous TikTok advice because it's terrible and no one needs this stuff in their life.
And then they start to hold on tighter. And in the process of holding on tighter, not only does it push him away, but it causes you to lose a piece of yourself.
Okay, that is completely illogical. It causes you to hold on tighter. No, not necessarily. If you yourself have a life and hobbies and other things going on, you should be doing those things while he's doing those things. That's just basic common sense. It's called having a life. If you're sitting around waiting for this person and playing this stupid game, I'm a returning streamer. So I'm new on other platforms, but I'm returning after 2 years out on surgeries and stuff and getting my mind in a different place. Been through a lot in the past couple years, so firing up the old engine again. But yeah, returning, new, however you want to look at it. But the reality when it comes to this kind of stuff is there is no pull away phase, but I'll let her keep digging her own grave here. Get back to what she's saying real quick. It doesn't push us away.
But it causes you to lose a piece of yourself.
Lose a piece of yourself. That is bar none manipulation. You're not losing anything of yourself by choosing to have interest in someone and express that interest. That is the purpose of dating, to express interest, to communicate. It's real simple. Communication is number one, not just in romantic relationships, but in all your relationships. You check in on people, you care about people. You don't put one person on a pedestal and then throw everyone else away like a scatter shot. It just doesn't work. Well, I appreciate your comments. Thank you for saying that you appreciate my efforts. And I hope that you will support me and that you'll hit that follow button and that you'll look for more content. But you're not losing a piece of yourself. This is just manipulation tactics.
So listen up as I tell you what exactly is happening during this pull away phase.
He's living his life. There is no such thing.
John Gray, he is the author.
Oh God, this guy.
Of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
John Gray, number one, is not a doctor. John Gray has no actual PhD. In this book that she's mentioning, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, using stupid stereotypes. That book is from like the late 90s. The guy has no actual PhD. The PhD he claims to have is from some diploma mill place that got shut down by the Attorney General's office. If you want real relationship advice, go listen to John Gottman, the real doctor of PhDs in relationships. Someone who actually knows what they're talking about, the Gottman Institute. Go look them up. But I'll let her keep digging this grave here.
Men biochemically bond and fall in love through a different process than women.
No,
and through this process, he goes through a pull-away phase. It's a biochemical process that happens within his body when his testosterone significantly drops because he has fallen for you. Now,
okay. This is hilarious right here because not only Is she taking a really old study from like 2003-ish and claiming that this is true for all men because it is not? Now, I'm going to come back to this after this video is over, but is it true that men's testosterone drops while in a relationship? Marginally, but it's not an instant thing. It doesn't just go and plummet. That's not how it happens. And it's also not true in every single case. There are so many different reward pathways and other functions that are involved in testosterone elevation, not to mention, are you getting good sleep? What are your other covariates? Do you have any endocrine issues? All these other things. But really, when it comes to testosterone, you're getting good sleep. If not, your cortisol is probably high. Well, that's a double whammy there. That could lower your test significantly. Yes, I can see the chat. I do not have an Instagram, but I do have an X account, which is just Cosmic Calico X all together. So you can follow me there if you'd like. But what she's claiming here is a quarter truth, but we'll dive into that after the video is over, because not only is this claim ridiculous in many ways, using it as a justification tool to say that, oh, well, his testosterone dropped, that's why he's not talking to you, is not only laughable, it's just ridiculous. The way that testosterone actually works is when you're in REM sleep, that's when your testosterone starts boosting. So by like 8 in the morning, your testosterone is at a pretty high elevation. And then over the day, it's going to go into its trough. So that by around 8 to 10 p.m., your testosterone is at the lowest in the day. So it's not this giant rise and fall. If you're taking steroids, well, then it's like that. But your natural rhythm, it's a sine wave, not this instant drop. I do not have a Discord yet. As a matter of fact, my Discord somehow got fried a couple times, so I'm staying away from Discord for a little while. But let's let her continue making herself look ridiculous.
Are there men who are players that are pulling away because they are interested in other people? Yes, but if you
But that's not really being a player. That's called dating, and he's talking to other people. Now, should he be upfront with you about that? 100%.
are dating the way I'm teaching you how to date, then
Please do not date the way she is teaching you.
you will be able to identify these men rather quickly. The man I'm talking about is the man who has character, the man that you have learned how to properly vet, select, and attract him.
Now, what did she just say about being a player? And then she's teaching people to vet, select, and attract. That is quite literally the definition of being a player in dating. Oh, it's just ridiculous. These people always step over their own feet. And in that process of stepping over their own feet, they find that some people actually know what they're talking about.
And this man, who seems like all the other aspects of his life are congruent with him being a man of standard and character, that type of man is starting to pull away from you. Now, if that's
Probably
the
not.
case, then understand that biochemically he's going through something that is completely natural. Don't get upset. Don't freak out. Don't start to chase him. Don't start to attack him.
That is the worst advice. As a man, I am telling you that this idea of don't start to chase, what she's actually saying is don't communicate with him. If you don't communicate with us, we're going to assume that you're losing interest, and we're going to talk to other people. But if you just do the human thing and communicate and continue to communicate, we're going to keep communicating. Really that simple. Unless you've said or done something disrespectful, then of course we're going to be like, yeah, no, that wasn't cool. So please don't ever do that again. And if you continue to do it, well, then we're going to be done. It's called boundaries. Common sense. Men and women should both have boundaries, and boundaries should be respected. Really simple.
notice that this is actually a good thing, because when a man goes through this phase, that means that he is pulling back so that his testosterone can rebound, for one, and for two, so that he can legitimately make a decision on if he wants to take the plunge for you. Because when a man decides that you're the one that he wants to be exclusive with, then he has a permanent drop in testosterone. It also decreases his ability to have that keen hearing that was
What? Hearing. My hearing is not affected by testosterone. That is a complete and utter fallacy. What she's actually saying is because his testosterone dropped, he doesn't hear what you have to say. He's not as attentive anymore. That is false. In fact, in what she's trying to describe, it's a give and take. It's a sociosexual effect. So if the man is the type whose testosterone drops, well, that could be because he's comfortable, but it could also be related to whether or not they got a kid, or if she has a kid and he's now taking a parental role. So many other factors in that. But what she's talking about is not a permanent drop, and the drop is like 20%. So if you're sitting at like 700 nanograms per deciliter, that's like nothing. If you're already low T and you're sitting at like 350, well, then yeah, you might have a problem. But a man's really not even going to notice this.
Was as high before he met you.
His hearing.
And there's other biochemical processes that he sacrifices as well, having an advantage in when he actually falls for you. You don't want a man to just accidentally default choose you. You want a man to intentionally know that he.
There is no accidentally default choosing someone. It's always an intentional choice. And if it's not, then that guy has no idea who he is. If we tell you that we're interested or we like you or something, guess what? That's what it means. Wow, who knew? Just like it should be the same for a female. If you tell us, hey, I like you, I'm interested, would you like to go on a date? Guess what? That means you're consciously choosing. It's not just some default mode. That's ridiculous. And it's just out of context. And this idea that he cannot live without you. Okay, that's manipulation. A man can live without you. He's choosing to include you in his life, just like you are choosing to include him in your life. This idea that you can't live without someone is false. It's also involved with stringing people along, and this can also lead into an abusive scenario. Well, you can't live without me. Actually, I can. Why divorce happens.
He cannot live without you, and he is willing to do whatever it takes in order to be with you. When that
willing to do whatever it takes in order to be with you, you have to clarify that statement, because anything can be misconstrued. What he's supposed to give up his boundaries to be with you. He's supposed to give up his friends to be with you. He's supposed to give up an infinite number of other things. Now, that's all situational. And that is terrible advice, because it sets a terrible precedent in the relationship in the first place. It sets a terrible precedent in attraction, really.
Man reaches that conclusion, then he comes back bigger, better, and stronger than ever. And you're going to know that he is serious about you, because he will want to commit to you. Why? Because biochemically.
Okay. Thank God that ride is over with, because it was an absolutely atrocious ride. And I hope that no one takes any of that advice to heart, because it is a complete fallacy. Now let's go into that whole testosterone claim. And this is another thing with these so-called coaches. They've never read a study in their life. Not one. I have over a decade of reading studies from A to Z. So this idea that our testosterone just drops and plummets because we're suddenly interested in you is the tiniest little scope. The reality is that doesn't happen to everyone. So as you can see from this tiny little study that is unfortunately not often quoted because it's a great study, romantic involvement often reduces men's test levels. but not always. The moderating role of extra parasexual interest. And that's a fun one, basically, what they're saying, the moderating role of attraction. So I've highlighted some things in advance to make this less boring for the less scientifically inclined. A recent review of the literature on the association between T and sexual motivation suggests a threshold effect of T on libido. T levels below a certain level appear to be positively related to libido. Above this level, however, the marginal increase in libido associated with T is minimal. In other words, what they're saying is there's a cap on T and libido. So, past a certain point, it doesn't matter what your measurement is. You're still going to have sexual activity. You're still going to be able to get it up and all these other things that go along with having high testosterone or having a high libido, which is also a psychological factor. It's not just a hormonal factor. In an evolutionary framework, responsiveness of T production to mating effort implies that there is a cost to men of maintaining high T when they are mated. In fact, T has such costs. It channels energy that could be used otherwise into, for instance, maintaining muscle mass. Right, so testosterone has multiple functions. And despite popular belief, while there is aggression that is associated with testosterone, a lot of that actually comes from estrogen. That is a fact. But I digress. It's not what we're discussing here. T may also encourage risk taking behavior that, although potentially beneficial, when men are competing for mates, entails costs not worth undertaking when men are in committed relationships. Obviously, what risk is there to take? Finally, T may interfere with affiliative and nurturing behaviors that are important in species characterized by long term social bonds between relationship partners and parental care by both sexes. Translation: there's a trade off when you're a parent. Not only are you losing sleep when you're raising the kid, you have more stress. The two biggest drops in testosterone come from those factors: poor sleep and high stress. Well, having a child leads to poor sleep and high stress, point blank. So, of course, your T is going to drop. And then, whatever marital stressors or relationship stressors you may be having that you're arguing about instead of talking about, that'll do it too. But continuing on, the potential moderating role of extraparasexual interests. Although longitudinal data indicate that T levels change as a result of changing relationship status, from a conceptual standpoint, it's not clear that all men's T levels should change in the same way. Of course not. Whereas the levels of many men may drop when they become involved in a committed relationship, the levels of others may remain relatively high. Wow, who knew? Not everyone has the same biology, therefore, it can't be applied blanketly. Now, there can be trends, but those trends do not apply to all beings. The current studies investigated potential moderators of the effects of relationship status on men's T. Paired men may be faithful or unfaithful. No way. There goes the psychological component. It's a choice to be faithful or unfaithful, and that's the truth. Faithful men are relatively committed to the sexual exclusive nature of their relationships. Although they may find women other than their partners attractive, wow, that's normal. That's called being human. They do not engage in effort to attract these women. That is, they do not engage in extra pair mating effort. So, women out there who get pissed at men for being attracted to other women while they're in a relationship, y'all are just pulling a double standard because you know you're looking at guys that you're attracted to. Yeah, you're not making moves. Well, neither are we. But the difference is, oftentimes when a man expresses that a woman is beautiful or hot or something, well, then starts the fireworks and then the assumptions, oh, he's cheating on you. No, the problem is you're too busy watching these stupid people on TikTok. And then you're throwing your relationship, which is probably just fine, into the gutter because you don't understand how biology actually works. So that causes all these dysfunctions within the relationship. And that's when it starts to fall apart. Scroll on through all the math work here. I'm making a point here with this study that it's simply false to say that there's a permanent drop in testosterone. It's just not true. The current study suggests that these latter effects are at least partly due to the modulation of T by social circumstances, as I just mentioned. If a guy finds another woman attractive, but he's in a relationship with you, that's just a social circumstance. Although the T levels of men may, on average, drop when they enter relationships, which I said earlier, the T levels of men who retain extra pair sexual interest, even when in a relationship, show no evidence of any such drop. That line right there completely demystified and absolutely disintegrated her entire stance. That's what happens when you quote people who aren't real PhDs, have never done a study, and they have never read a study themselves, or they do what a lot of people do. They read the abstract and think that that's the study. No, you got to go in and you got to do the deep dive with these. The T levels of, oh, wait, sorry. Were this association due solely to the effects of tea on men's tendency to be in relationships, there would have been little reason to expect an interaction between men's extra pair sexual interests and their tea levels. Wow, who'd have thought? Were it simply the case that men who have high T are more likely to cheat when in relationships, their T should covary with the SOI when they are single. That's the sociosexual index. But we did not observe that pattern of results. This view also suggests that more experienced single men with low T should be more likely to have been in relationships than those with high T. But we did not find the percentage of men more experienced single men have been in a relationship in the past 3 years predicts their T levels. So, one wonderful study just proved everything that this woman claimed as completely false. And that's what makes it manipulation. She has no idea what she's talking about. What she's teaching women out here is how to be manipulative. And that is a problem. That is really the main problem with all things relationship in 2025 and all these so-called experts on TikTok. Like, dude, people like this are what's wrong with society. This is why people don't have conversations anymore. This is why people are too busy hiding now. No one trusts anyone. Everyone's busy falling for manipulation tactics, gaslighting, uh, just dejecting people from wanting to associate with others. Like when, as a man, seeing this content, knowing what I know, it's absolutely hilarious, but it is dangerous. It's a societal issue that needs to be nipped in the bud. Free speech is a great thing, but it's also a double edged sword. And this is why you can't just hang on to someone like a dingleberry because that's really what's going on in more feminine circles today. They take this stuff and run with it when it's not even legitimate. And this is just one example of I'm sure I can find countless others. Like there's so much abuse on TikTok, they should just change the name to Abuse Talk because oftentimes that's what it is. And that also comes from the woke crowd, but I think that much is obvious. These sorts of issues make it hard for men and women to communicate. They make it hard for even parents and children to communicate in a lot of ways because if you don't know how to communicate, you read into things with no basis in reality. And when you do that, what you're actually causing is a complete disruption in your home life, in your relationship life, And then you wonder why you're single all the time. You wonder why you're claiming that men are all the problem when men aren't the problem. The problem is people like this, people who are out there to take your money and take advantage of you. You really want help, go see a marriage counselor. Probably don't talk about your relationship problems to people who aren't in the relationship because oftentimes people have motives. And you'll find that those motives are not always in your best interest. They're actually in the person's best interest because they're unhappy that they're trying to say that they're your friend, but what they really want is to see you where they are. And that doesn't help your life at all. Unfortunately, that's what's going on in the world, and it's not okay. It should be called out. These sorts of people should not be put on a pedestal. They're not professionals. They're not experts. They have no idea what a study is. They don't know how to read a study. They don't know how to look for bias. They don't know who funded the studies. They don't know quality, all these other things. And they also don't just they don't have just basic common sense. And a lot of this stuff is repeated patterns. It's both generational and it comes from the home. It comes from however their parents did or didn't communicate, uh, how their grandparents did or didn't communicate. All these different interactions from multiple people, multiple angles are what form these kinds of issues. And then these people think that they have some kind of unique perspective when they're really not saying anything different. They're just saying what other people say and they are just regurgitating. Regurgitating information never helped anyone. That is all I have to say about that particular subject.